All right. Hey, good afternoon, class. Dr. Lunsford. My name's Jamie and Lewis. I'm excited to talk to you all this afternoon about Taub Hospital. I move my mouse out of the way there. And their Hurricane Harvey response. And so, this case study has definitely changed as I've researched. My problems have changed. Um, and so, I'm excited to share it all with you. And just so you all know, I'm super jet lagged. I'm coming back from a different location, being in the military. Just got home last night about 1 o'clock, so bear with me, folks. All right, let's get started. Well, I guess I have to click. Nope, can't click. There we go. Sorry about that. So, the overview is what I'm going to talk to you all about today. Start off with the hurricane season back in 2017, talk about Hurricane Harvey, Texas Medical Center, specifically within Texas Medical Center, Taub Hospital. We're going to discuss a problem, how my problem has changed through research, talk about some unforeseen challenges that Taub Hospital experienced with Hurricane Harvey, how they overcame those challenges. We'll also talk about evacuation and how they avoided evacuating, recovering, how the facility recovered after Hurricane Harvey, and then some lessons learned for other businesses, other hospitals to use moving forward. They had a lot of great documentation in their after action report that should be truly valuable for other healthcare facilities to use if they're faced with a natural disaster like Hurricane Harvey. All right, so hurricane season of 2017. So it was actually the most costly in U.S. history. Damage estimates north of 250 billion. That is including 3 hurricanes in particular. So had Hurricane Harvey, which hit southwest Texas. We had Hurricane Irma, which hit Florida, and then Hurricane Maria, which, as you all know, devastated Puerto Rico, which is a U.S. territory. So, and it brought massive damage. And each of these storms also brought a unique emergency preparedness and disaster recovery uh, challenges for facility management, their team, hospital executive leadership. You know, not all storms are the same. Not all hurricanes are the same. Harvey, for example, it moved really slow and brought a lot of rain because it moved so slow. And so we'll talk about that more in detail as we move through this um, presentation. All right, so Hurricane Harvey. It is the most destructive storm in U.S. history. At the time, we're still waiting on damage estimates from the recent hurricane that hit Florida. That was a tough one, but I have not seen the estimates been officially published yet. So as of now, Hurricane Harvey is still number one in U.S. history, and it caused an estimated damage of $125 billion. The storm dumped about 50 inches of rain on the Houston area in 7 days. So that is very significant because that's more, 50 inches of rain is more than average annual rainfalls for most U.S. cities. So that's a lot of rain. And as a result, Houston experienced some of the worst urban flooding since New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. And so I put a picture there of Hurricane Harvey, just looking how I wish I would have included a picture of Katrina so you can compare. They're similar in size. Just know that Hurricane Katrina's eye, you can see there in the center of the hurricane, that eye, their eye was probably twice as big. So just for your info. So here's a graphic here about the rainfall brought on by hurricanes since 1990. So you see Hurricane Andrew brought nearly 12 inches of rain, Charlie 8 inches, Katrina, right, caused a lot of damage. It's number 2 in U.S. history for damage, only brought 10 inches of rain. And so if you look at Hurricane Harvey, it brought nearly 52 inches of rain. Um, it's it's crazy to think about the flooding that went along with all of that rainfall and the amount of short time it took for those 52 inches to fall. 7 days, that's a lot of rain in a short time, and that brought about a lot of issues. So like I said, each hurricane is unique and brings on unique challenges. And this graphic here shows you the cost of damage from the hurricanes that hit the U.S., some of the biggest hurricanes that hit the U.S. So just for comparison, we got Andrew, 27 billion nearly, Charlie, 15 billion, Katrina, which was huge, right? A lot of devastation, 75 billion. So just think of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans and how it impacted the individuals there. I'm from Louisiana, so it really hits home. Um, and then look at Harvey, $125 billion. Significant damage. All right. So, Texas Medical Center. Texas Medical Center it's the largest medical complex in the world. Okay, they have 2.1 square miles of property. Ben Taub is the largest level 1 trauma center within that Texas Medical Center chain. And so I put a picture there. All of those tall buildings, the orange building there in the front center, kind of off to the left, that's Ben Taub. But all of those tall structures, most of them are within the Texas Medical Center chain. Okay, so like I said, it's the largest medical complex in the world. Um, Two of the most known healthcare facilities within Texas Medical Center is Ben Taub Hospital and the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. People come from around the world to, unfortunately, cancer's a problem, but they have to, or a lot of folks come to Houston there to MD Anderson. And so initially, um, I read some things about Ben Taub and how they had a lack of preparedness and how they kind of drug their feet and ultimately didn't decide to evacuate, and it resulted in patients and staff being victims, and they were stranded, and they didn't have food and water, things of this nature. And truly, that was what the media built up, to, I guess, get that uh, viewpoint, that negative viewpoint to grab individuals' attention. And that's what I was going to build this case study off of. I was basically going to call Ben Taub out and itemize out all of things that they did wrong because, hey, I'm a patient. Um, um, but through research, I kind of proved that media false. Found some different things, so I'm looking forward to sharing those with y'all. So MD Anderson and Ben Taub, just to elaborate. So these two hospitals, their lessons learned from previous emergency situations and the training that they provide in the medical community for emergency preparedness and disaster recovery is immensely important. It's valuable. A lot of medical facilities build their emergency operation plans off of what comes out of these two facilities. And so they're a leader when it comes to patient care and innovative thinking, and really setting the example for healthcare facilities. So let's talk specifically about Ben Taub. So Ben Taub, it's a level 1 trauma center, has 440 beds. For acute care, inpatient care, right? So, and it's located there in the heart of Texas Medical Center. Ben Taub is a hurricane veteran. It's been through a few different hurricanes, specifically Hurricane Ike in 2008 and Hurricane Rita back in 2005. And so it's the members of the facility team and individuals that work in executive leadership there, C-suite individuals at Ben Taub. A lot of those members have experience with hurricanes. And so they actually have a 16-member ride out team, right? Disaster preparedness team there with made up within the facility management section of the hospital there. And so as soon as Harvey made landfall, the executive leadership made a decision to stand up the team, and they began to prepare for the worst. Let's see here. So, my trade, I'm actually a healthcare administrator for a smaller outpatient clinic, and I'm infatuated with emergency management and disaster preparedness. I really like it. I love studying about it. And as I kind of stated earlier, as I began researching topics for this case study, I inquired about disaster response situations that didn't necessarily go well. It's easy to talk about things that didn't go well and what facilities could have done better, after the fact. So I was really going to capture that, especially when I saw the media discussing Ben Taub and the issues, the claimed issues, right? Um, so within the problem, right, I actually found a news article. I clipped it there. The New York Times posted this. Um, and basically, what the news article boiled down to is that it claimed that Ben Taub had 350 patients and 400 staff members at the time of Hurricane Harvey, and that they ultimately became victims because the hospital did not decide to evacuate in a timely manner. And so, after research and looking into this, and actually understanding what happened, this is false. And so, I didn't think the New York Times would ever tell a lie, right? So, this was found false through my research. So let me look at my notes here. So I found that Ben Taub Hospital nearly had to be evacuated during Hurricane Harvey, right? They're faced with a lot of issues. 52 inches of rain, that's a lot of rain in a short amount of time. But due to some quick thinking by their facility staff, they actually stopped the flooding and prevented evacuation and kept the hospital occupied and running during that. So actually, Ben Taub um, became kind of like a safe haven for those individuals there. So it worked out really well. Um, and so I'm going to talk about that. So some of the unforeseen challenges, right? Um, a hurricane's coming. You can see it uh, on the news, the Weather Channel, and the veterans there at the hospital, they expected to encounter wind and rain. Actually, the facility management staff said they could expect leaks. And their facility manager actually said that's exactly what they got, leaks, right? So um, the facility manager there also stated that the facility, they got leaks in places he never thought possible, right? So as the storm raged, a 6-inch pipe suffered a 30-foot gash, a 30-foot gash, right? Unleashing just a huge torrent of storm water into the facility's basement. It was awful, right? So if the team didn't stop this huge influx of water, they were going to lose the hospital. And so that it would have brought about electrical failure, and if you don't have their backup um, emergency power, um, it's robust, but that's not how you want to operate, right? And so, especially if you have the generators in the basement that's flooding, you're in a bad spot, right? And so, the facility manager, they interviewed him, and he said that the mood of his team as this 6-inch pipe burst, right, was darkening rapidly. Um, but he said that move the slide here. This is how they kind of overcame the challenges, right? So huge pipe burst. The facility manager, he was noted by a number of the staff there that he gave an outstanding pep talk, right? He got them motivated, got the ideas flowing, and so kind of assigned positions, right? they had pre-assigned positions, but they had to have some flexibility. And basically, the facility manager called Houston's non-emergency 311 number, um, and they didn't answer right, and so but they did call him back shortly after about 15 minutes, and they were able to get some pumps. So that's where he called out 311 so he can get some water pumps to pump the water out of this facility for that unforeseen leak, right? And so I got the pumps in. They started the team. They had sandbags there in the facility, and so they used sandbags kind of to direct the water out of the facility, kind of making a canal. And then once they got the pumps, they were able to pump the water out of the facility, using the sandbags to make those canals and water drains. And it was noted that as soon as the pump started, the staff could tell that it was working and the water was receding. Okay, so look at my notes here. All right. But the hospital was not out of danger yet, right? So let's talk about how they avoided evacuation. So Ben Taub is located near a bayou, and the pressure from the overflowing bayou uh, on the storm sewers like caused another pipe in a different location of the facility to blow a cap, which basically stops the water from coming out of the pipe. Um, so pretty soon there was nearly 6 feet of water flooding into a mechanical room, and that was, I thought I had a picture of that in here. Um, I think it's later in the slide presentation, but basically there was another pipe that blew a cap, and water was just pouring into this mechanical room. It was getting dangerously close to some of the vital electrical and telecommunication equipment. So all of the internal comms, internal communications of the facility could have been compromised had this water risen to a certain point. So, um, and if this would have happened, the hospital would have for sure had to have been evacuated. And as you can see in the picture there, the flooding, it would be difficult to get out, right? Get out anywhere. I mean, literally, you have a pond right in front of your facility, and it's surrounding the facility. So that's a picture of Ben Taub there. So how they overcame these challenges. Um, the facility manager, he gave that pep talk, um, and then this unforeseen pipe burst, right? And then another pipe burst. So we're at pipe burst number two, right? So the team found a board kind of to block the water from coming out. They used it as a temporary cap. And they said some of the team members went swimming under the water to actually find the blown off cap so they could recap the pipe. Um, and as they were searching, one team member had a great idea of grabbing an electrical concrete drill and to drill into a concrete wall, a barrier, to release the water. This was dangerous, right? So electricity and water just doesn't mix. So the facility manager actually stated, our team was standing in a line, holding up the extension cord, and we were just hoping that no one dropped their part of the cord. So they're all in the water, lined up, holding the cord as one individual is underwater, drilling into a concrete wall to vent the water. So the facility staff actually stopped the flooding before major equipment damage occurred. Their efforts were successful with drilling into the wall, And as soon as the water started to recede, um, they could control the water more effectively and get it out of the facility. And this resulted in saving those sensitive electrical and telecommunications equipment that I mentioned earlier, and prevented the possibility of evacuating the facility. And so, due to that flexibility and quick thinking and getting those major issues under control quickly, um, they were able to avoid evacuation. Clicker's not working. There we go. All right. So, recovery. So, with the major issues under control, the facility manager began thinking about recovery. Um, he was in constant contact with disaster recovery and their plumbing contractors. He stated that that was essential, right? The two companies were ready to get in there as soon as the storm ended. And it was noted that that's a key takeaway for any facility manager hoping for business continuity, um, for you know to continue business operations, kind of make it as less disruptive as possible. So the facility team actually used infrared moisture meters. This was really unique. I've never heard of this, so that's great that they used infrared moisture meters to identify leaks in other areas affected. So they would use these meters, like these digital gauges, and basically, if it was at a point of moisture where they could clearly see that it had been soiled with flood water, they immediately replaced that sheetrock and or drywall. Um, that's a great business practice to prevent mold, to keep it from overwhelming your facility, because once it's in there, it's very difficult to get out of there. So, and ultimately, it took about 3 weeks for full recovery. That means that every patient room was back online and operations were back to fully normal. It took about 3 weeks. All right, so some of the lessons learned, so these folks are hurricane veterans. They've been through a couple, but we all know that now that not all hurricanes are the same. They all don't happen in the same way. So the facilities team leaned on some valuable lessons, learned some valuable lessons from this storm. They recommended having more tools on hand to be able to direct water out of the building, like those water pumps. That was one thing that they recommended having on hand, so that way they wouldn't have to work through their city to get those assets. Um, and even though the team was successful in making it happen and preventing evacuation, it was noted that there were some anxious moments. Right, I can imagine 2 unforeseen water pipe, um, you know, explosions. Right, just where the water pipes burst. Um, The facility manager also recommended having a more robust staff with more trades and competencies on hand for the ride-out team. Specifically, he noted to include plumbers and electricians to manage things like generators and transfer switches. I believe they had to rely on outside entities to really manage those aspects of facility management during the disaster. And so he would like to have those assets internal, so in the event disaster happens again, they won't have to reach out as much for things. All right, so thank you all for bearing with me. Sorry for all the pauses there, um, and bearing with my computer issues, but these are the things that I've discussed with you all today. Talked about the hurricane season of 2017, how it was the most expensive season, right? Talked about Hurricane Harvey, how expensive it was and how devastating it was, especially to Texas Medical Center. You now know that Texas Medical Center, right, is the largest in the world. Um, Talked about Ben Taub Hospital and how it it and its team did an outstanding job at managing the events that came about with Hurricane Harvey. Talked about the media and what they said the problem was. And we talked about what the actual issues were, those unforeseen challenges of those pipes bursting and the flooding. Um, we also talked about how the facilities team overcame those challenges and made some quick on the spot decisions to prevent flooding and avoid evacuation. We also talked about the recovery and how they use those infrared meters to gauge for water damage. And the 3 weeks it took. I mean, 3 weeks for such a large facility to get back to 100% ops, that's a huge feat. So that's great. And then we also talked about some of the lessons learned and recommendations um, for additional supplies and resources in the facility, pre-positioned there in the event of disaster for when it happens again, right? Because we know it will happen again. But thank you all for listening to me. I really enjoyed speaking to you. I wish I could be there in person. Unfortunately, the military moves me around. So, but yeah, thank you all. And please, if you have any questions, please email them to me or to Dr. Lunsford, however you want to coordinate that, sir. I'll be happy to answer any questions. So thank you all and have a great day.